The attorney's hands were trembling as he pressed play on the vintage tape recorder. It was 3 weeks after Doris Day's death in May 2019, and her estate lawyer, Robert Bashford, had just discovered a locked box in her Carmel home that contained something nobody expected to find. A cassette tape with Doris's handwriting on the label for When I'm Gone, My Truth, May 20. As Doris's familiar voice filled the room, Bashford realized he was about to hear something that would change everything people thought they knew about America's sweetheart. "Hello," came Doris's voice, weaker than the world remembered but still carrying that unmistakable warmth. "If you're hearing this, then I'm gone, and it's time for me to tell the truth about everything. Now I'm going to share with you the contents of that secret recording, Doris Day's final message to the world, recorded just weeks before her death, revealing secrets that will break your heart and truths that Hollywood tried to bury." The recording was made on May 3, 2019, just 10 days before Doris passed away at age 9. Her housekeeper later revealed that Doris had asked to be alone for several hours that day, claiming she needed to organize some paper. Instead, she had been recording what she called her final confession. "I've spent 97 years on this earth," Doris begins on the tape, "and I've kept a lot of secrets, some to protect other people, some to protect myself, and some because I was just too scared to tell the truth." Her voice pauses, and you can hear her taking a sip of what sounds like tea. "But I'm dying now, and I can't take these secrets with me. They're too heavy, and they've been hurting me for too long." The first revelation on the tape would shock even those closest to her. "People always asked me why I never remarried after Martin died in 1968. Doris continues. "Everyone assumed it was because I was still grieving, or because I was afraid of being betrayed again." She pauses, and when she continues, her voice is barely a whisper. "The truth is, I did remarry. In 1972, I had a secret ceremony with a man I'd loved for 20 years. But we could never tell anyone because he was married to someone else, someone famous, and the scandal would have destroyed both of our careers." The implications of this revelation were staggering. For nearly 50 years, Doris had kept a secret marriage hidden from the world. "His name was James," she says, though she never gives his last name on the recording. "He was an actor, someone you would all know. We met on a film set in 1952, and we fell in love instantly." According to the tape, this secret relationship had lasted until James's death in 1995. "We would meet at my Carmel house when he could get away. His wife knew about us eventually, but she never said anything publicly. I think she understood that what James and I had was real love, not just an affair." Doris's voice breaks slightly as she continues. "I know people will judge me for this. Good girls aren't supposed to love married men. But sometimes love doesn't follow the rules that society makes for it." The next part of the recording deals with her relationship with her son Terry, and the guilt she carried about the Manson murders. "Terry blamed himself for Sharon Tate's death until the day he died," Doris says, her voice heavy with pain. "He thought that if he hadn't rejected Manson, if he had handled it differently, those people would still be alive." She pauses, and you can hear her crying softly. "But I blamed myself more. I was his mother. I should have protected him from that monster. I should have seen the danger." According to the recording, Doris had actually met Charles Manson once, though this fact was never made public. Terry brought him to the house one afternoon in night. He seemed like just another hippie musician, but there was something in his eyes that frightened me. I told Terry that night to stay away from him. The revelation that Doris had actually encountered Manson personally adds a chilling new dimension to the story. If I had insisted, if I had been stronger about it, maybe Terry would have cut ties with him sooner. Maybe Sharon would be alive today. The recording then turns to her feelings about Martin Melcher and the betrayals that defined her later life. "People think I hated Martin for what he did to me," Doris says. "The money he stole, the contracts he forged, the TV show he trapped me in. But the truth is more complicated than that." Her voice becomes stronger, more resolved. "I did hate him for a long time. But I also pitied him. Martin was a weak man who was terrified of not being important. He stole my money and my freedom because he was afraid that without controlling me, he would be nothing." This psychological insight into Martin's motivations had never been shared publicly before. The real tragedy isn't that he betrayed me, Doris continues. The real tragedy is that he never understood that I loved him for who he was, not for what he could give me or do for me. If he had just been honest with me, we could have been happy. But perhaps the most heartbreaking part of the recording is when Doris talks about her public image and the price she paid for being America's sweetheart. People think my life was perfect because I always smiled and sang happy songs, she says, her voice filled with a lifetime of sadness. But the truth is, I was desperately lonely for most of my life. She explains that the wholesome image that made her famous also made it impossible for her to have genuine relationships. Men either wanted to corrupt America's sweetheart, or they were intimidated by her. Women either wanted to be my friend because of my fame, or they resented me for having what they thought was a perfect life. According to Doris, the only people who ever saw the real her were her animals and the mysterious James she refers to throughout the recording. Animals don't care if you're famous or not, she says. They just want love and they give it back unconditionally. That's why I surrounded myself with them. They were the only honest relationships in my life. The recording then takes a surprising turn as Doris reveals her thoughts about death and what comes after. I'm not afraid to die, she says with remarkable calm. I've been ready for a long time. I'm tired of carrying these secrets, tired of pretending to be someone I'm not. She pauses, and when she continues, her voice is filled with something that sounds like relief. I hope when I'm gone, people will remember the music and forget about America's sweetheart. I hope they'll understand that the songs were real, even if everything else was just a performance. One of the most shocking revelations on the tape concerns her attitude toward her own career and legacy. I never wanted to be famous, Doris admits. I just wanted to sing. But once you become famous, you become a product, and everyone has an opinion about how that product should behave. She talks about the movies she was forced to make, the songs she was required to record, and the public appearances that made her feel like a trained animal performing tricks. The only time I felt free was when I was alone, singing to myself, with no cameras, no audience, no expectation. Those were the moments when the music was really mine. Near the end of the recording, Doris addresses her fans directly, and this is where the tape becomes almost impossible to listen to without crying. To everyone who loved my movies and my music, she says, her voice now very weak. Thank you for letting a scared little girl from Ohio pretend to be brave and happy for you. She pauses, struggling to continue. I know you thought I had a perfect life, and I'm sorry for letting you down by not being perfect. I hope you can forgive me for being human. The final part of the recording is Doris's advice for future generations, particularly young women trying to find their way in an unforgiving world. Don't let anyone tell you who you're supposed to be, she says with surprising strength. Don't smile if you're sad, don't pretend to be happy if you're not, and don't let anyone make you feel guilty for wanting more than what society says you deserve. Her voice becomes urgent, as if she's trying to pack a lifetime of wisdom into these final words. Love is real, even when it's complicated. Art is important, even when it doesn't pay the bills. And your truth matters, even when other people don't want to hear. The recording ends with Doris singing, a cappella, just a few lines of Over the Rainbow, the same song she had chosen for many of her most important performances. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, she sings, her voice fragile but still beautiful. There's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Then, silence. The discovery of this recording sent shockwaves through Hollywood and among Doris's millions of fans worldwide. Legal experts debated whether it should be released publicly, while family members struggled with how much of Doris's private pain should be shared with the world. Ultimately, portions of the recording were released to select journalists, while other parts, particularly those naming specific individuals, were kept sealed to protect people who are still alive. But those who have heard the complete recording say it reveals a Doris Day who was far more complex, troubled, and human than the public ever knew. It's heartbreaking, said entertainment journalist Rex Reed, who was among the first to hear the tape. You realize that this woman spent her entire life giving joy to other people while struggling with profound sadness herself. Music historian Will Friedwald noted that the recording provides crucial insight into Doris's artistic choices. Understanding her loneliness and her desire for authentic connection explains why her best performances always had such emotional depth, he said. She wasn't just singing songs, she was trying to find genuine human connection through music. The revelation about her secret marriage has sparked intense speculation about the identity of James, though the Doris Day estate has refused to provide any additional information. Some secrets should remain secrets, said estate attorney Bashford. Doris chose not to name him publicly, and we will respect that choice. But perhaps the most significant impact of the recording has been how it has changed the public's understanding of Doris Day herself. People are finally seeing her as a real person instead of just an image, said biographer David Kaufman. The recording shows us that America's sweetheart was also America's most private woman, carrying burdens that nobody understood. The recording has also sparked conversations about the price of fame and the pressure placed on female stars to maintain perfect public images. Doris Day's secret recording is a reminder that the people we idolize are human beings with their own struggles and secrets, noted cultural critic Susan Faludi. The tragedy is that she felt she had to carry these burdens alone. In the months since portions of the recording became public, it has inspired countless tributes from fans who say they feel a deeper connection to Doris now that they know more about her real life. "I always loved her movies, but now I love her courage," wrote one fan on social media. "It takes incredible strength to live your whole life performing happiness while dealing with that much pain." The Doris Day Animal Foundation, which continues her work caring for abandoned animals, reported a significant increase in donations after the recording's release. "I think people understand now why animals meant so much to her," said Foundation Director Bob Bashford. "They were her sanctuary in a world that often felt false and demanding." As for the complete recording, it remains sealed in a vault, with instructions that it should not be released in full until 2044, 25 years after Doris's death. "She wanted time to pass before everything became public," Bashford explained. "She was still protecting people, even from beyond the grave. But the portions that have been shared have already changed how the world sees Doris Day, not as America's perfect sweetheart, but as a brave, complicated woman who gave everything she had to bring joy to others, while struggling with pain they never knew she carried." The secret recording Doris Day left behind reveals that behind every perfect image is a human being with a story that's far more complex than what the public sees. And sometimes the most beautiful performances come from the deepest pain. In her final message to the world, Doris Day reminded us that perfection is an illusion, but truth, even painful truth, is a gift. She spent her life making others happy. In death, she finally told her own story, and in doing so she set herself, and perhaps all of us, free.